Hello, I'm David Jones, and I thought I would do a quick video on gold for the weekend, just considering what we're seeing happening in this market over the last few days. We've got gold at fresh all-time highs. Now, gold has been above $2,000, $2,100 an ounce before, but it doesn't last there very long. But this time, so far at least, it is different. So I thought, let's take a look at gold, the reasons why it's doing what it's doing at the moment, and where the opportunities might be in the next week. And also, is this the start of a new era for the gold price? So as usual in this video, I'll talk through some of the recent news, talk a bit about my opinion, then we'll jump onto the chart. You can see the performance here on the daily candles. Jump onto the chart and take a look at things in a bit more detail, because I do think it's an interesting market to watch. Lots of markets are interesting at the moment, but gold has really woken up over the last couple of weeks, so we'll take a look at that. Before we get into that, if you've watched any of my videos, you know there's various stuff I do. I run a trading course that's got 5-star Trustpilot reviews. I send out a newsletter free of charge every Sunday. If you're not subscribed for that, if you go to the website, there's on the homepage, there's a place you can put your email address in. I'll put all the links in the description to this video. And I also run a WhatsApp group, so a WhatsApp group that I update every day in the mornings, UK time. A general market update, what markets look interesting on the day, what I'm looking at for trades I'm running. Then I do an update as the US markets open, day trades I'm looking at on US indices, and what stocks I'm looking to buy. It's a big thing for me this year. It's been trading US stocks with a more medium-term view, looking to run positions for weeks and months. It's gone well, as you'd expect, as it should have gone, considering what US markets have done this year, and I talk about the US stock trades I'm doing as well. So if you'd like to try out the WhatsApp group, if you use the code YouTube, you can try it for a month. Again, go to the website, the link's in the description, you can sign up and I'll add you in, and it's access to me and the trades I'm looking to do and what I think about markets about 12 hours a day until the US stops, so the link is down there. Right, let's get into it. Let's talk about gold and what's happened and where it might be going next. So we've seen it hit its best levels ever. So I'm recording this late Friday afternoon. I'll put it on YouTube on Saturday. We'll take a look at the markets in a sec. But it's taken out the previous highs that we saw in early December of 2023. They were up around about $2,150 an ounce. I'm going to talk in a second about what I think is different this time. But let's talk about the driver here. There are expectations of rate cuts by the US central bank this year, the Federal Reserve. And of course, lower interest rates normally mean a weaker US dollar. A weaker US dollar is good for the gold price. The gold price moves inverse to the direction of the US dollar. And we have seen, over the last few days, the US dollar under some pressure. So that's definitely helped the price of gold rise. There's also talk about central banks in Asia buying gold. There's talk about Chinese investors buying gold after falls in their local stock markets and property markets. So again, that's, I suppose, to some extent, fueled some of the positive feelings around gold. But traditionally, of course, gold is used in times of uncertainty. And I don't think we have that at the moment, not from a stock market point of view. If you look at stock markets, again, at the time of recording, US markets have been open for about 90 minutes on Friday. They're still hitting fresh all-time highs. The NASDAQ and the S&P, after the payrolls, have traded up to fresh all-time highs. So investors still have an appetite for risk. So gold isn't going higher because people are worried about stock market at the moment, because stock market's still going higher. But perhaps there are still concerns about the robustness of the US economy. Perhaps that is a worry for some investors. At the moment, we are not seeing that play out in the stock market. But for me, as a technical analyst, a chartist, a price action trader, what's interesting from a gold point of view is that we're seeing what's known so far, at least, as acceptance at these levels. So you'll see in a second when we look on the chart, whenever we've seen gold trade up, above 2,100, it's not spent very long up there. It's hit almost like a raft of selling and the price backs away very quickly. We're not seeing that happen so far. So this is why I think it's a really interesting market for the rest of this month and perhaps later this year. But as usual, enough chat about it. Let's jump on the charts and take a look at this in a bit more detail. Right, let's take a look at this gold price in a bit more detail. I have got weekly candles here. So going back to 2011, so we've got 13 years of data. So the old highs for gold were back here around 1920. And that was in August 2011. The gold price broke out again in August 2020. We didn't get much follow through though. As it turned out, if we jump forward in time, there's our breakout to the old highs. But since August 2020, whenever we've seen the price of gold back up at these levels, so the high then in August 2020 was about $2,075 an ounce. And you can see whenever it's run up here, we have the run in March 22, the run in May 23, that strange move in December 2023. The market's backed away from this level. Let's flip it back to the dailies. But this time so far is different. I'm recording this on Friday. There's about 3.5 hours left of US trade, and the gold price is still powering higher. You can see it less than $10 away from 2,200. And this is where we have this idea of acceptance when it comes to markets. You know, markets are always trying to find this balance between buyers and sellers. So if a market trades up to a level, but actually it ends up being too expensive, we see a sharp turnaround. This is exactly what we've seen with gold over the last 3.5 years. But we're not seeing it now. We're seeing a lot of acceptance during March for the price of gold up above this sort of 2,075 level. So I think it's really interesting. Now, this was the old all-time high before from December. So let's see what happens going into next week. You know, until this had happened, it had been a fairly boring market. If we take the last couple of weeks out, you know, we've seen this sideways range for gold, but clearly things have changed. So for me, the really interesting thing is if this thing starts getting sold off, where do the buyers come in? Let's look at some levels. Before we look at that, let's have a quick look at the RSI. So the 10-day RSI down here. This is the most overbought gold has been. We've got to go back to August 2020. So on 10-day RSI, it is absolutely at an extreme. But in strong trending markets, you know, indicators, oscillators like the RSI will move to extremes. Let's zoom things in. So where I think it's interesting is if we get this market start to sell off. You know, what level would I be looking at for a sell-off over the next week or so? I think if we come back and test these previous, the ceiling for gold, apart from that move up in December, around about 2,075. Let's pick up on the December high. You can see it didn't spend very long there at all. That 2,075 to 2146 area. If we pull back into this zone, do we see the buyers come back in? And that for me is where the trade might be. You know, looking to buy the dip, buying a dip back after the breakout. Let's flip things over to an hourly chart to look at some more levels. So here's the break through the old high, the December highs. Okay, so for short-term traders, if we're looking for a pullback, perhaps we see some support around the 2145 level. Then we've got the lows from the week we've just been through, 2120, 2110, and this bigger level down at 2080 from Monday. You know, so it's done, you know, $100, a 5% rise pretty much just off this week's low. So for me, any sell back, any sell off looks interesting. Where do the buyers come back in? So that's going to be the test. If we see it sell off for a few days, when we get a day of strength, that's one of the things I'm going to be looking for to being a buyer. Of course, the risk is if I wait for a sell off, the thing doesn't sell off, and perhaps it moves another couple of $100 higher from where we are. Let's take a look at some possible targets. If we look at gold when it broke out to fresh all-time highs before the big break in the summer of 2020, the previous high was 1920, so $1,920. It did move $150 higher before running out of steam. Okay, so if we're going to use that as a benchmark, that gives us a target of $2,225, so another $40 or so from where we are now. And let's not forget, following that breakout, it did nothing then for 3.5 years. So that's always a possibility. There's always the possibility that we have the false breakout. Okay, so that's again something we need to be wary of, but you never know if a breakout is a real breakout or a false breakout until after it's happened. There's no magic way of trying to figure out, is this going to be a valid breakout in gold? To come up with a much more bullish take on it, if we go back to these highs all the way back in 1980, we got the breakout in 2008, so 28 years later. That's a long time to be a hodler of gold. And the market traded up. Again, it wasn't that massive a move. It moved up $160 following the breakout. And then we had quite the deep sell-off. You know, we know that gold can be a volatile market. Breaks out again in 2009. And then we really get the run that puts on about $900. So the price almost doubled from that 2009 breakout up to where it got to in 2011. So that was, you know, a sizable move for gold over those couple of years. But let's not get too carried away at the moment. So for me, I want to take it, you know, day by day. You know, we're finishing the week up at all-time highs. It's had a very bullish move. Flick it back onto the daily charts. The interesting thing for next week is the sell-off. Where does the sell-off stop? I want to be a buyer of the dip. So for now, I'm going to believe it is a valid break, buy the dip, but that's the test for me, is when it sells off, where does it stop? And then I can have a better idea of where I want to put my stop loss. But the first area I'm going to be watching is the other side of 2075, these highs that really did cap the gold price all the way back to August 2020. This should be an interesting couple of weeks. So there's our update on gold. I think it's a really interesting market to watch in the week ahead. Let's see what happens. If it dips, where do the buyers come back in? This is what's going to be interesting for me. Are we just going to see it tank back below 2000? I don't think so, but anything's possible. But I think it's really interesting. I'll be looking to buy the dip next week. We'll see. So for those of you in the WhatsApp group, you'll get updates throughout the week. There's no live stream because I'm away later this week. The live stream will be back a week on Friday. If you'd like to join the WhatsApp group, of course, don't forget to use the code YouTube. You can try it out for a month, see what you think. For details on the trading course I run, go to the website. And finally, the newsletter, I'll send it out on Sunday. I'll mention gold in the newsletter. So if you're not subscribed for that, that's free of charge. Go to the website, put your email address in, and that's it. Okay, I think that's covered everything. We'll see how it trades over the next couple of weeks. We'll take a look at it in the live stream when I'm back for that. But until then, good luck with your trading.